Good morning and welcome to Conversations with Annassa. So let's begin with meditation. Take your attention inside. And this morning, we want to go directly to any place in you where you feel like you have been rejecting yourself. So we all have this, not all the time, and it's certainly not in the forefront all the time. But when we take our deepest attention into the place where we feel the most vulnerable and bring love to that, we are reinforcing the structure of the love within us so deeply that everything can heal. So feel into yourself wherever that vulnerable place of self-rejection might be, and see if you can mentally open and receive love so that you are breathing in the pranic plasma, the healing substance of life itself, into your deepest self. And allowing this deepest part to be nourished by love. The part that we usually shun, the part that we usually hide from ourselves even. This part we want to open to total light, white golden light. And breathe this light, the love of God, the love of the universal, which is our nature, our birthright to experience. There is nothing in us that is not made of love. So into this place, as we breathe in golden white light and exhale any energy that is not love, we can say Ho'opono, Ho'oponopono to this place. Thank you for showing me. I love you, the connection to our divine self. I'm sorry, the apology to ourselves for this place of wounded connection. Breathe in the golden light and exhale the rest. Allow yourself to be deeply, deeply healed. Gently, gently allow this love to permeate every part of your being. Allow yourself to become golden white light. Allow yourself to be filled with love. Allow your boundaries to just disappear. And now we're going to use the Om sound together in 3 parts. Om. Do it at your own pace. We'll do it 9 times. Gently gather yourself in. And slowly open your eyes as you bring yourself back. And we'll begin our question and answer part of the program. How may we serve this morning? How is everybody? So happy to be with you. Brenda? All quiet. That was a pretty quieting meditation. So the purpose of that was to demonstrate that we contain within ourselves all the love that we need to grow spiritually. Because in the final moment, we face our death alone. Each one of us. And so it is our awareness of that we cultivate in meditation. You know, there have been saints in India who dug their own grave and sat over it in meditation for many, many years to remind themselves about the temporariness of this life. And of course, it's not just the last moments that count. Everything counts and nothing counts. Really, it's our internal capacity to experience love and share it with everyone that we meet, because in the sharing of it, it becomes reflected back to us until our entire experience of life becomes this love itself. And some history tells us that life happens in cycles and that humanity at certain points is in this enlightened state. And then over thousands and thousands of years, the experience degrades to where we are now. This time period in Vedic history is called the Kali Yuga, which is the most difficult, the darkest part of human experience. And the understanding is that throughout time, there are 4 phases of human experience. One is the phase where we are all completely enlightened, where we can know everything by hearing it once, where oral traditions are possible because people have a memory that works. It's not it's not distracted in the way that we are. And that over thousands of years, this experience becomes less and less, and more we are exposed to darkness. And then the whole thing begins again with the godlike realm. And that in experiencing all of this, we experience all the manifestations of love itself. And we have within us the capacity to experience all of that now. It is our attention that determines what our experience becomes. Whatever we put our attention on is what grows. So if we think and worry and complicate our inner life, that's what grows. If we meditate and expand at least part of every day, that is what grows. If we serve others to the best of our ability, that is what grows. So it's up to us to choose our inner experience as much of the time as we can. And spend as much time as we can cultivating our inner connection to love itself. We do this with meditation. And interacting with those that we love, especially ourselves, treating ourselves with love. Very often the way we treat ourselves is how our parents and siblings and peers when we were a child treated us, because we took that as reality. Because we were trained to look outside ourselves to define reality, rather than looking inside of ourselves to find that golden white light, to feel the frequencies of life moving within us through our channels and chakras. So at any moment in time, we can turn around and put our attention in these channels and chakras and experience ourselves as a multidimensional light being. It is our attention that determines our access to these experiences. How may we serve further? Andrew?
Is our connection with deal with Annassa or any strong beneficial energy or field depend upon our remembering the connection. In other words, the demands of life, distract us, this, that connection. So
Well, the real question you're asking is, are we ever disconnected from love itself? Are we ever disconnected from our source? That's really the question. And if we're not aware of our connection, does that mean it doesn't exist? Is that?
yes, and also through an intermediary like you. What is this particular frequency?
So anything disconnected from source energy is no longer alive. So our awareness is not required for this source energy to be available. But our cultivation of this awareness, as you know from your experience, changes our day-to-day experience from one of being reactive to one where, in the best moments, our actions come, our way of experiencing life comes from love itself. And this happens to everybody at times. It just comes through. You've felt this welling up of expansion. This is joy. We've all experienced joy at one time or another. And the opportunity of practice is to experience this more and more. Because this is what we would choose if we had a choice. We would all choose to live in the God realm. We would come to this place like watching a scary movie. But this is where we are. And so, of course, it's always there. Of course. No one is separate from it. But our awareness of it can improve the quality of our life experience by quantum levels of magnitude. So it's a huge oversimplification to say that we create our own reality. Because there's always feedback in one form or another that we are interacting with. At the same time, when we keep recentering ourselves and deeply loving and respecting ourselves, and as a result of that, loving and respecting everyone who enters our environment or whose environment we enter, then the quality of the flow within us and throughout our communications changes over time. Another way of saying this is that the divine never abandons us. It is we who take our attention away from the divine. And the interesting thing about this, one of the experiences that I cherish in my life is that as part of my medical training and part of being a doctor, I've had the opportunity to treat people with Down syndrome and other kind of mental reducing illnesses, where if you've ever been around someone with Down syndrome, they are so full of love. Their hearts are stuck open. And this is when I first learned that it doesn't take an intellect to know God. That there's a purity of being that just shines through this open heart. And the open heart is the point, not the intellectual gymnastics. And there was something very, very deeply reassuring to me in those experiences, and completely educating in having my hands on these amazing people, amazing beings who in our culture are pretty much hidden away, maybe less in this time than when we were children. But, they're treated by our culture as misfits or mistakes, when in reality, this bounding open heart is the truth of what a human being is capable of. So, really we would take that as the answer. That open-heartedness is always available to every human being. And a lot of what meditation is cultivating that experience, making ourselves available to that experience of just pure raw love, which has no motive except to express itself and see that in everyone else. We hope that answers your question.
Does, and I guess my second question is that, is there any benefit to contraction in people, or being when one's around someone who's contracted it because of their despair and their pain? Can't.
Well, there's something in every spiritual practice acknowledges that there are experiences that we call the dark night of the soul. And these experiences are deep contractions where it appears that hope for joy is obscured by a dark cloud. And It's been reported that in the depths of this contraction, there is love. There is, how do we say it? Release of the ego and experience of the whole. That is life-changing. This can happen for a person in the depth of that contraction. It's been reported, for example, Ramana Maharshi, his father died. Before that, he was pretty much a young athlete. You know, he was a teenager, he was 16 years old. And he laid down and decided he was going to experience death. And in the depths of that contraction, he found God. He actually died and was reborn. And he was never the same again. Now, after that experience, he went to the mountain Arunachala and sat in meditation for decades without saying a word, without paying any attention to his body. And he lived in caves that were full of insects and probably other creatures that he completely ignored. And so his body suffered, but he was unaware of that. And to this day, people report going to Arunachala, walking through the space where he lived, which has been preserved, and feeling this love, which still permeates the place where he lived. That love doesn't die. How amazing is that? And what greater contraction could there be? So that's the potential that's available in contraction. Of course, we would not wish that contraction on anybody. And we would wish that outcome for everyone at the same time. How may we serve further? Does that answer your question? So the question is, how should we be with someone who's going through a dark night of the soul? And the answer to that is that we remain energetically available as a source of light, love, compassion, Touchstone is the word. And even though that feels like it's not nearly enough, it is what we have to offer. And we have no way of knowing how much that helps. But understand that in a very dark room, one ray of light is very, very powerful. So we just hold to that light. And whenever we think of that person, we surround them with that light. Not in an intrusive way, not in a demanding way, just we offer our love. And so in this moment, each of us can reach out to the darkest night of the soul, to anyone in this world who is experiencing that, and radiate our love, our light toward them. We don't need to know their names, but we are fortunate in not experiencing that in this moment. But at the same time we do that, it's very important that we recognize that in each of us, there are places where the light may not have reached yet. And so we open in ourselves to those places at the same time, because we're not different. Any of us could have a dark night of the soul within the next 24 hours, given circumstances. But having known that this light exists and experienced it regularly coming here, we actually can begin to generate it for ourselves by turning our glance inward. And just like that simple Om that we did at the beginning, we can get our energy moving up the central channel. Oh. Something that simple can change our frequency. Less than 10 seconds. But even offering that to someone who is in the dark night of the soul can be too much. So very often silence and projecting our field of love is the best we can do. And then we do our best with the words in responding to whatever comes forward.
What, what if a life is a dark night of the soul having many lives, with each life having a purpose? Question.
So let's make sure we understand the question. What if a life is the dark night of the soul, an entire life?
What if a life is a dark night of the soul? The soul having many lives, with each life having a purpose.
So, what if a life is a dark night of the soul having many lives, each with a purpose? Well, this question has within it the assumption that reincarnation is a linear event. We would say that. And
Says yes, a single within the chain of lives.
so within each life, there are multiple experiences. A life itself is generally, even if it's difficult, not completely a dark night of the soul. And we have no way of knowing or judging the inner life of someone by their outer life. We have heard many reports, for example, of prisoners who attained enlightenment while in jail. This has happened. There are examples of people like Nelson Mandela, who really took years of incarceration as time to do spiritual practice. So we can't judge any life but our own. And where we put our attention is important. What we cultivate within ourselves determines a lot of the quality of our lives, our inner lives. And so our capacity to cultivate this connection to the deepest love within ourselves that is available, we are the love we have been waiting for. We contain that love, and in our loving self-acceptance, we become more and more of that love. And the quickest way into that love is the practice of Ho'oponopono, to allow the darkness in ourselves to rise up and to say, thank you. I'm sorry I'm not connected to my own highest self. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. And in this way, we become more and more love. And in this moment, the now moment contains the past, the present, and the future. In which case, reincarnation becomes irrelevant. And we will tell you that many lives are happening at the same time, that time is not the way we experience it as a linear event, that past, present, and future are all contained in the now moment. And that because our brains are linear, we can't begin to encompass what that statement actually means. Except that when we are completely present in the now, we have access to everything. And more importantly, as we expand that access, is way bigger than we can even perceive. We are cultivating extrasensory perception within and around our being. And if we think of that as timeless and spaceless, that brings us closer to the truth with capital letters. And we still enjoy and respect our senses, but they are no longer the limitation or the definition of our experience. But our language and the way our minds work, for the most part, is linear, because it's our training from the outside in to be linear, and that everything that is important that happens in this plane. Now, we still use this plane to communicate because it's what we have. And it's a frequency on which we know that you will understand in a linear way what's coming through. But we spend a lot of our energy in this exchange trying to acquaint you with something else. And that's what we're really communicating about all the time. That's why we're here. Yes. Now we feel you really tuning in. Yes. This is what we're about. And it is this now moment, which is forever. And when you feel it with your heart and kind of keep your mind away from it, just allow yourself to experience it as light or color or feeling without a particular word to limit it. Then just let that This is what we're talking about. Yeah, you got it. You got it. Hmm. Just let your mind be quiet. Or it can run rampant. It can be doing all kinds of things. Let it do its gymnastics, but you just stay here. Hmm. Now allow this feeling to permeate every cell of your body. Yes. Hmm. How may we serve further?
Somebody's story.
Hmm. So as we said before, reincarnation is not a linear event. It's not that we live one life to completion and then we die and we begin another. And we live that one to completion, and each one is a little further on the scale of being close to God. Not like that. It's all happening at once.
First, if lives are simultaneous, how is it we know history in a linear way?
Because, so the question is, if lives are simultaneous, why is our history linear? Well, our history is constantly being rewritten every day. And if you've ever played the game of telephone, where 10 people stand in a row and one person whispers something in the first person's ear and they whisper it in the next person and they whisper it in the next person, if you get to the 10th person and you compare what the message was at the beginning to the message at the end, well, that message can't even make it across a room without being distorted. So if that's the way our history is created, how could it possibly appear to be anything but linear? But our understanding has to be that history is recreated in every moment by the experiencer. And so, and we know just from watching what happens with textbooks over time and what parents want their children to learn, that history is completely revised with every generation. So thinking that we have any linear idea of history that has real continuity with reality, whatever that is, because we know that reality is a very experiential perception, that three people viewing the same accident will give three completely conflicting reports of what happened. So what part of history can we possibly take as being a reflection of reality? When you really examine it, it turns to air. Now, we do have agreements that we take as true, in quotes, between each other so that we can feel like we're speaking the same language? But history is not the solid thing that we think it to be. Was there a part of that question we missed? What was the question again?
How it, if lives are simultaneous, how is it we know history in a linear way?
Yeah, I think we answered
Like
that.
living many lives at once and then with one history, I don't know.
So the question was, if lives are simultaneous, then how do we have linear history? And we think we answered that. Linear history is imagination. We can probably take birthdays and death days as reality. But beyond that, and the second question?
Somebody else.
Okay. Another question. We love questions.
How can we clear trapped energy around trauma and clear chronic illness?
Okay, the question is, how can we clear trapped energy around trauma and clear chronic illness? So there's already some understanding behind this question that there is a connection between chronic illness and trapped trauma energy. This happens for some people, that there are traumatic events that get stored in the body that was incapable of processing that energy in the time of the trauma for whatever reason. Maybe the person was too young to have the maturity to process the trauma, or the circumstances for survival required not acknowledging the trauma at the time. Doesn't matter. Unprocessed traumatic energy can be held in the body in the form of energetic pockets that over time can disrupt the flow of energy just by being obstructive in their existence, just by being a block in a channel. It can obstruct the flow through that channel, creating chronic symptoms. So the question is how to clear that energy. And much of what we do with Ho'oponopono is about clearing that energy. It's about going toward the places that scare us inside ourselves, allowing them to open, and understand that when you hit one of these pockets and you open it, the first thing it's going to do is complain. Rebecca, as a healthcare person, has gone through this with many of her patients, that a pus pocket that's what she calls them, will suddenly open. It's a pocket that contains old, undigested energy. And the first thing that happens is the person is completely covered with that energy because it's opened up. It's like opening up an old wound. And the rule in medicine is that pus needs to be released so that it can heal. So encourage the release of that traumatic energy, whatever it looks like, doesn't matter. And then heal what has been exposed underneath with pure, raw love. And then a new being emerges because everything is changed by reestablishing flow in whatever meridian, whatever of these 72,000 pores that we have on our skin. Each one of these is a channel in our body. And the junction points are called nadis, and the bigger junction points are called chakras. And so as the flow is reestablished in these junction points, then our experience changes. And we are a changed being. So that's how you clear it. Often it takes the help of another person, you know, a therapist who is a very good listener and mirror, or a hands-on person who can help to dislodge these traumatic injuries. Whatever can be helpful. And the real inner practice of meditation and going toward our pain and releasing it and filling the space with love. This we can do for ourselves. But all of these, you know, and good friends, people who love us, people we love, can help us through this. We hope that answers your question. How may we serve further? And as we ourselves heal our own traumas, we become a wealth of information for those around us. And yet, as we've all realized, there's a time and a place for sharing. And most people are not interested in our help unless they ask for it. So that's kind of a golden rule, that unless somebody asks for your input, don't give it. How may we serve further? Mm-hmm.
How can we be in the now, in the love, on a consistent basis? Is there a simple practice to help us achieve this? How can we be in the now in the love on a consistent basis?
So the question is, how can we be in the love, in the now, on a consistent basis? And what's the key? What's the practice? So we do it every week, and we try to do it a little bit differently so it doesn't get boring. The practice is you breathe inside yourself, and you breathe golden white light into yourself, the pure raw love of our own divinity, which is available to every human being in every moment as we inhale. And then you exhale everything that's not that pure love, that pure divine light. And you do that until all you can feel is pure white, golden light. And if that doesn't work, then you can imagine an Annassa temple, which is a dome-like structure. And you walk through a forest to get there. You wash your feet in a stream before you enter. You enter in the spirit of devotion to your highest self. When you enter the Annassa temple, there will be a table, and you lay down on the table and you ask to be shown divine golden white light. And you inhale and you breathe that light into the deepest parts of yourself. And you exhale everything that's not that divinity. And you stay there until you have that experience. And then you create that experience within yourself as often as you can remember to do it. And your entire life experience will change. And when you run into difficult energy within yourself, you welcome that difficult energy. You say, hello, I am so grateful that you showed me this part of myself that has not yet resolved into love. And you welcome this disharmony and you say, thank you. I love you. I'm sorry that you have disconnected me from my own love. Let's fix this. I love you. I'm grateful that you're here. I'm sorry that I'm incomplete at this moment. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you. I love you. Whatever order, it doesn't matter. You say it until you are in flow with your own divinity, until your awareness is permeated by that which is the source of all being. We hope that answers your question. More? So here we are at 1/4 after. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for the reply. So we want to go back into meditation, and this time we want all of you to participate. We know we did it earlier, but this Om sound, as you do it, feel it from the tip of your tailbone, radiating all the way up your central channel and out the top of your head. So it's ah, oo, mm. These are the three sounds. Om. 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 And now do it with a whisper. And now continue silently. And we will be transmitting. Thank you so much for being here today. It's really beautiful to be with you. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.